Hi, I'm Hillary Brown. I'm the founder of Yoga Moves, and I wrote this ebook called 10 Things to Know Before You Sign Up for a Teacher Training. And I'm giving it to you for free. You can get it right below, and I really invite you to read it, especially if you are considering diving in, spending your money, spending your time, spending your love time, your family time on a teacher training program. And I, of course, want to encourage you to go for your dream and join a teacher training program. And of course, I'd love you to join our program. But let me tell you a few stories from what could go wrong. What could go wrong? I've been doing teacher trainings for over 20 years, and I've heard a lot of stories out there about things that did go wrong for students. And let me give you a couple of examples. I think one of the most atrocious stories was from this gal that actually ended up doing our teacher training program. But I got to meet her because at the end of her course, she was in a program somewhere near Amsterdam. This woman had set up, and this woman basically, told them they were going to get the Yoga Alliance certificate, that her school was accredited. And anyway, they went through their course, and there were 12 people in that course. They paid their money, they'd done all their work. And then she set up the exam, and believe it or not, the woman said that we, Yoga Moves, it was kind of a compliment, we're going to be the examiners. We were going to show up at the certain time and be part of this examining body for her school. I didn't know the woman. And she did a whole dance and pony thing about it. And then she said on the day of, we got caught in traffic. And point of the story is she just lied. And the funny thing is, then when I looked at the website, this woman called me and said, "Where's my certificate?" Because she thought that we were going to give the certificate. I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. Come to find out, I looked at that woman's website, and she just copied and pasted all of the text that I had written into her own website, and even sold her training kind of to look like Yoga Moves. I couldn't believe it. Like, it's just so weird. You would think the yogis would be ethical, but low self-esteem runs in all sectors. So be careful what you get into. And, come to find out, the training wasn't that great anyway. So the gal came over, one of them, and did our course next. So that was one story. I mean, there's been others, things like another gal who went on a yoga, kind of a retreat training, where you fly to some beautiful place. In this case, she went to India. And I don't know, it was 3 weeks, spent a lot of money to get there and to be in the training. And it was just like a yoga mill, She said the accommodations were terrible. The food was just okay. It was, kind of regimented, and, they did yoga, but they were and sometimes you find this in certain parts of the world where, yoga has become such a commodity that, these people just put up their program. I mean, kind of like this woman in Amsterdam, and, try to get your money and just give you something. And because you're not that sophisticated consumer yet, you trust people. She said it's just a terrible program. And the other thing that she said, what I find interesting, is that sometimes when you go to a program in another culture, say in India, and you have Indian teachers, well, they may be giving you more of a traditional look at yoga and in the way that, like, say, India and cultures looks at it, which can be amazing. But when you come back home, the skills or the situation here is quite different. Like, your classroom is different. The way people approach it is different. How to manage all the things that happen in a yoga studio or a gym here. You might not have even talked about those things there. It's much more traditional. So it's sometimes hard to put together what you learned into what you actually need to do when you arrive back home and you want to start teaching. Another big one that I find is unfortunate is that, sometimes people get into a training that's not exactly suited for them. Like, it's not the right training for them. And it's not necessarily that the training is not good. It's more like the style or the approach for what they want. I'll give you an example. Say if you want to teach in sports schools. It's like that's where you're already working at, you have a kind of, and you want to teach more. I'm going to call it sports school yoga, which is kind of rude to say, but and it's not always that sports school yoga is different from other yoga, but sometimes it is. And I think it's just good. Let's just call it what it is. Very often it's, more my kind of power yoga, boom, 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 not very deep. And it's not always that way. So please understand. But say that's where you want to be working. Then you probably want a different course than someone that's doing a really traditional hatha yoga, which is much more feeling centered, much more philosophical, less on the asana, less about the body, more about the mind. Those two trainings probably are not the right training for those different people. And so you're going to look for a training that fits you, right? And of course, if you love a certain style of yoga, you're going to look for something that matches that style if you think that's what you can teach. So that's also really, I think, important to consider. And I'll go into some of these even more deeply, but I just want to give you a taste of why I want you to read the book. The other one, for example, is, I have to say it, some yoga schools, I'm going to use a word. I'm just going to say it. I feel like some people get cheated. And I don't know if they would notice it, but I know, listen, time is money, right? You've heard that expression, time is money. So the same true, if they say it's a 200-hour program, but you're going to get 200 contact hours, which means contact with your trainer. And there's a whole ethical kind of question about who is the trainer. And really, it's about having contact with a senior teacher that can really guide you, and also that you have built a relationship with. So it's my belief, that's a belief of mine, that you want to have a kind of the trainer and you have a kind of relationship with each other, that you start to know each other and see each other and understand each other, and that there's a way that you can have that kind of contact with someone in the training. So one, if you only see that person once or twice in the training, or very, very seldom, or they don't, get to even know you at all. And two is if they're always rotating, like every day it's a new person, or it's a new topic person, it's just a bunch of different things that aren't really threaded together. I don't think that's a real good training. I think that's a bunch of little workshops sort of stuck together that doesn't feel like a training to me, right? So I think it's really worthwhile considering how training, and you can ask those kind of questions. A friend of mine told me the other day that in her teacher training, which she just finished, they sat him in the classroom and they threw him in front of a poor video, like a YouTube video for 4 hours or something. And I think that's really cheating, it's like that's the old style. Like when I was a kid, they would do that at school, but if I was going to do that in my training, I'd say watch it at home. I mean, I'm not going to call that like contact hours where you come into the classroom and I'm forcing you to watch some old video. It's not that the video wasn't good. It probably was great information for all I know, but the fact that they squished it in the time that you are there to learn in person seems like kind of a way of cheating you from what you've paid for, which is contact with a teacher that will work with you. So that's why having different components in a training that can help different ways of learning will help you, or help most people, learn better. So that's just a few of my kind of examples of 10 things you better consider before you sign up for teacher training and make sure that you're going to get what you want. And one more thing is, like, you may not know in the beginning if you really are going to teach, if you're going to be confident, if it's really your path. But knowing that you'd like to be able to, if you want to be trained as a teacher, is different than being trained as a yogi. Now, being a yogi is essential to teaching. So it's kind of like, is the training all focused on your practice and never about how to get in front of people and teach and dynamics of teaching, all the didactics? I think the two have to go together, but the foundation is your practice. But if you don't do this other layer of how to teach, my experience is you kind of miss the boat in the teacher training part. So that's why our course is very much about that. We really try to push that one a lot, even before you're ready, because you'll find out that you learn by teaching, by getting up and trying to speak the words and figure out what we're doing. So, and some courses like the one I did, my course that I did, we hardly did any training on teaching, very little. And what we did was, I wouldn't say it was that great. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the book, and I hope to see you in one of our seminars, or of course in one of our teacher trainings would be great. So check that.